Well, within our company, we're seeing a huge interest in mobility. And our company has also invested a lot in responding to those needs. Mobility is taking off in a great way, and you'd be surprised in just how many areas of a business mobility is starting to impact. And I'd just like to go through some of the issues that surround the deployment of mobility and the need that people have a joined-up strategy to address it. I think there's been a lot of hype around the use of bring your own devices, people hooking up their iPads to business systems and the like. And I think this hype needs to be replaced by structured mobile strategies adopted by companies. And as they go into that thinking, they need to identify the reach of the system, in other words, who uses what and how many people need to have access to it. You can identify three basic types of user. First of all is the casual user, and that's the individual who might be accessing business systems from an airport, for example, in any sort of lost time, in between meetings, traveling, anything like that, where they just want to have a quick look-see to see how things are going. And that's a casual user, but the fact that so much of a company's employees can access the system in that casual way is a great benefit. It deploys the system far wider. If we go to the next level, and that's a serious professional user of the system who relies on the mobile technology to use it on a day-to-day basis, then it starts to become much more demanding in terms of the applications that run on it. And in that case, you see field engineers, for example, who are requiring to know what's the next job to go to, service engineers who actually go out and fix things, they need to know how to do that, they need to know the history of the product and so on. And so those guys are totally now enabled by smartphone technology and also by the whole the technologies coming with mobility. That wasn't available to them, say 5 or 6 years ago as an option. And third, and finally, is the what I say transactional users, where people are moving from a classic PC workstation to a tablet type usage. And that means the tablet's much more mobile, it's lighter, it has a lot more sort of apps on it than were there before. It allows users to experiment and have a wider set of facilities than they had before. And I see that the PC market will move to more tablet-based solutions. And therefore there's three distinct types of users, and I think each company needs to identify how they want to deploy their systems and what sort of access they want to grant to people. It's a huge differentiator to be able to adopt mobility. I'll give you a very good example of that. 90% of the cost in a service company is the engineers' salaries, and therefore how those guys spend their time going out and servicing customers is absolutely crucial to the return on your investments in that business. It also affects the customer service levels, and therefore the revenue and the profitability of the whole business hangs on that. And what we found recently is that you can use intelligent software to actually schedule the priorities of an engineer. And that's the type of thing that we would provide. But what it does do, it transforms the whole ability of a business to respond and be more efficient. And that's a typical business driver. It also, I think, allows you to be more responsive because people are dealing with more uptime. They're always on live data. And actually, you could say that the data they're putting into the system is more accurate because it's going to be validated at the time it's actually put in. So if you're out in the field working with information, putting it into the system, you're putting in real live data and it's real time. People can share that. So there's a lot of business drivers that actually help a company if you think about what can now be unleashed with mobile technology and smartphones and their like, and tablets as well. I think that clearly what we've seen is there are some very strong beneficial drivers, but there's also a number of inhibitors, things that would cause companies to be concerned about launching into this type of mobility and deploying it extensively in their business. And one of the key inhibitors that people get hung up on is to do with security, because if you allow your staff who have got tablets to access key data, sensitive information about customers, your own business, market-sensitive information which is out there, suddenly becoming out of control in terms of its accessibility. And of course, these type of devices can be stolen, they can be lost, and people can leave the company and take the information with them. It's not unusual to hear about people leaving devices on trains with sensitive information on that, bank accounts and whatever else. And so people get very nervous about the security of data. That doesn't necessarily need to be an issue because today the technology, if you talk to a supplier, and we regularly deal with this issue, you can overcome that very simply, and you can put a lot of access into applications via, for example, cloud-based solutions where the information is not stored on the local devices, but access is very carefully controlled and the information is placed where it should be. There's two other typical inhibitors which you need to be aware of, and that is people don't understand what processes could be actually adaptive for mobility, and so they don't really think about how to do that. And this is where I think they can do with some advice, basically, because there are ways of thinking outside the box of doing something differently. Processes could change dramatically. The other third one that I think is worth thinking about, and this is an inhibitor that concerns people, is the technology. What you could almost call the sort of Betamax crisis moment. You know, do I jump on board with iOS, Android, or do I go with Microsoft? You know, if I go with any of those three or whatever, am I going to go down a path that's irreversible and then waste a lot of time and money? I think the important thing and the answer to that question is no. The thing to do is to concentrate on your business processes, engage with a supplier that understands the technology, and often the processes you're trying to enable will dictate the technology that you need to consider. So therefore, don't get hung up on the technology as an excuse not to do something. Get on board, do something, and therefore talk to suppliers, and they will overcome these issues about the technology. We looked at the fact that the market is changing dramatically. There's a huge amount of opportunity out there. It's transforming the way people do business. It's giving huge advantages to companies in terms of how they interface with their customers. And I think today people need to get on board. They need to understand the opportunities. Don't need to hold back. I think that's a risk. In other words, if you're waiting to see how things will develop, then your competitors will develop and take advantage of this way ahead of you. So I would say don't dilly-dally, get on board with this and get some advice. Don't do it as a piecemeal approach of just enabling people's bring your own device and hook it up to your system. That's a recipe for disaster. Think about a integrated mobility strategy, what you want to achieve, how you want to achieve it, and talk to people who can give you advice on how best to do it. But do something now and move on.